Oh, it looks like it's a new video. I guess I'm going to have to stamp this one up and connect it to the first one. So I had to relieve my bladder. So, that has more important because I don't have another pair of pants here in case, it gets quite cold, like I said. And anyway, so let's continue. I was talking about the earlier version of the European Empire, and of course there was even another version, and they even had a currency for a very short time, but it really didn't kick off. And before the euro came out, this other what was it called? I don't even know. That was even not that long ago. But the system, the currency was the IQ. Maybe a lot of you remember this, but I said it didn't take off, so a lot of people have forgotten that. So instead of the euro, it was supposed to be the IQ. So, as a matter of fact, I even have a coin at home. In some future video, I'm definitely going to show that. So, or maybe I'll take a picture of it if I find it. It was just a coin, and it was, like I said, it was really never used. So, let's get back into some other things. George Galloway, maybe a little funny little comments I could say about all this stuff, but I won't go into that. I got to keep this going. Dmitry Medvedev, he just put out that he does not believe that Trump is going to end the sanctions against Russia. And of course, he's not going to. Trump was a big supporter of certain sanctions anyway. The only good thing about Trump, maybe, is he's not in favor of a hot war. And sanctions, of course, are an act of war, but maybe not so. And I think they at least understand Putin enough to know that it's going to take a lot to get Putin to actually make a war. Even though they tell you something different in the press, they try to make you think that Putin wants to kill everybody, and I don't know. The people that watch this are not stupid enough to fall for all that, so I'm glad that I have a lot of great subscribers. And again, I cannot emphasize, how grateful I am to a lot of people that do watch this channel. And, you can watch other channels too. There's a lot of very good people out there. They're calling out all this fake news and fake history and fake everything, fake. And there's going to be maybe someday in the future when YouTube is going to be taking all of us off of here too, because the whole idea is to control your mind. It's, and then steer you into doing things that benefit certain people's, go get yourself killed and for some conquest of the big corporations and all that sort of thing. It's not that difficult to start figuring all these things out, tie it all together. Part of the thing is also to reduce the world's population. So, they're more than happy to be sacrificing hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians. And I think it was Neil Oliver. He just put a video out I think it was yesterday. It wasn't even yesterday. It was not even 24 hours ago. And I think his title is something like 600,000 Ukrainians dead. But some people call that, and conservative estimates, some people, I think Zelensky, he would say, 40,000. Not long ago, he was saying only 31,000 Ukrainians have died in that war. Yeah, right. And Neil Oliver was saying that it's, which is true, and I've been saying that. I said it in one video when it was kind of shocking. It wasn't even that long ago when Ukraine started losing about 2,000 soldiers a day. In the early days of military operation, it seems like it was maybe around 400 per day. And now, even though some days it's not quite that much, but that is a lot of soldiers to be losing, nearly 2,000 a day. And it really makes you wonder, where are they getting these people? A lot of them are of course foreign mercenaries and Ukrainians. And I have lately not been seeing that many videos of them snapping them up off the street. A lot of time they're going and knocking on doors, and they're, or they're kicking in the doors and going and grabbing young men and putting them on the front line. And even if they've come up with this this law of people from the age of 14 all the way to the age of 70, I don't know if that's been approved yet, but apparently they want to put people of those ages, 14-year-old kids, man alive, still in their teens, and have them go die, give them 1 week of training, just, put a rifle in their hand and say, point this end at the enemy, pull this little thing, and, make sure of whatever. I don't know. And, but I think they're talking about the millions of them that have escaped and gone to Russia and Belarus. And, some of them are leaving and then going to Russia in that way, and some trying to go through Poland, but Poland's trying to block a lot of these people now. So that's one thing. And yes, so that was something I wanted to put out, and of course the massive bombing. And there's something I don't even know how I was going to tie this in, but I always wanted to mention this. And you know, there's this element of I don't know if it's history. Some people say it's fake, all this, but a lot of the stuff has been coming out to be true, and it's maybe just coincidence. But a lot of you have maybe heard. Nobody's been talking about this lately, but if you heard this thing called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. And a lot of time this is taboo to be speaking about this. And this was some sort of a document supposedly found in Prague, Czechoslovakia. Maybe it was around 1900. I don't exactly remember the dates. You know, I should have looked it up and researched this a little bit before I was talking about it. But apparently it's a document, and it says how the Jews want to take over the world, you know, by running the press and doing all this sort of thing. And it's an undeniable fact that a lot of this stuff is actually taking place. So that's why a lot of people are skeptical about this being true or not being true. So, and it's I'm not going to commit myself to saying that I think it's true or it's fake, but there certainly is, and it's undeniable fact that a lot of elements that are written in there are true. And that's all you have to know, and that's maybe all you have to think. So you see, we're all just spectators. We're not participants in any of this stuff that's going on in the world. So as spectators, you know, we can look at some things that are happening and some things that are not happening, and just looking at all the facts. And then sometimes, you know, you get enough facts to where you can make a decision and say, well, hey, this apparently is what's going on. It's similar to what's going on, like I said, in Israel. And is there a genocide going on? And then you might want to ask yourself, well, what is a genocide? And how is a genocide different from ethnic cleansing? You know, ethnic cleansing might be say, well, let's just run these people out of here and cleanse the land for us so that we can have everything, and because we are the master race or the exceptional people or God's chosen people or whatever. Makes you wonder how we get this way into humanity. You know, maybe you look at somebody and they look different. Maybe their skin is black, maybe it's brown. Maybe, who knows? Maybe they just their beliefs are something that we consider as not really compatible with humanity, or I really don't know. So why do we come out and we hate each other and it's just hard to understand. And then, you know, they talk about this word even, racism. Well, I thought it was the human race, you know, and that we're all humans. And then you have certain people, unfortunately, there's a lot of people indoctrinated in, like maybe even in Israel, and they say that that like Palestinians are not humans, that they're animals and things. I mean, whatever possesses us to start thinking about this way, you know? And it's a lot of this, you know, or that your religion, for somehow reason, it's not like you were born into a religion. Judaism is a religion, and it's not a race even. I mean, boy. Anyway, all this stuff is just not to be understood, and because it's not to be understood, and it never will be understood, because it doesn't make any sense. So why in the heck do we believe in this sort of thing? I don't know. Instead of just trying to get along together. Anyway, that's just a message. And videos. How long is this video here? Well, anyway, I'm going to tap this onto this other video. Like I said, I had to relieve my bladder, so I had to make 2 videos. You know, I don't know, I get that way when it's really cold. So I'll end this, and I hope the war is not going to start at all, and try to stay safe. And I'm sure a lot of you are probably in some safe places. I'm in Belarus, may not be quite so safe. You never know. Anyway, I'll try to report back to you in times, maybe when there's more important information, or maybe something, you know, so we can share thoughts, and you guys can leave comments even, and yeah. Anyway, it's I get a lot of it's like therapy to me to make these videos. It gets it off of my chest. Maybe I can concentrate on studying to learn Russian, because I can learn a lot more, and when I learned Russian, and understand a lot more as well. So anyway, thanks for joining me again, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye. Good morning, everybody. It's nearly 10 o'clock on the 23rd of November 2024, and I don't have that much for you today, but of course I'm going to go into my little tangents, which maybe is a good thing. You know, talking about what's really happening in the world, and different perspectives. And one major thing that I do want to talk about is, of course, it all relates to what's going on in Ukraine, and between Ukraine and Russia, as well as, more so what's going on in the Middle East. Nice dog. Well, I'll tell you first where I'm at. I'm actually here's a major road here. I've been here before, and on the other side of this major road that you see up in the higher part of the ground there is outside of Minsk. So I'm on the southeast corner of Minsk. So, and this is the weekend. And one thing you see, it's in the morning, and they have people that are hired, and of course, pay is probably not that good, but you see there's some garbage in some places. You normally never see any garbage in Belarus in most places. But here, I think there's a garbage bin somewhere, and they have birds that come out here, and they get garbage around. So, isn't it weird? Here I'm showing you some pieces of garbage in Minsk. Nothing like what you see in some places in the United States, of course. But anyway, just to show that it does happen here. And of course, it'll probably be gone very soon. It's cold. I don't know. I don't think they work on Sundays, but people that pick this stuff up. Look, here's another piece of garbage. Anyway, let's talk about what I was trying to get at here, instead of getting too distracted on other things that are less important. Gosh, it's weird. It's like over a large area. Some pieces of garbage around here. See, there's one of the birds, one of the culprits that spreads this stuff around. These birds, they get into the garbage cans. They're worse than like raccoons in some areas, or dogs in other places. See, it's there's sort of a variety of crow. But anyway, so what's going on, unfortunately, in Lebanon, and like I said in some other videos, and it seems to be the case, is this escalation that's going on between Ukraine and Russia. Israel is using that as a distraction to escalate what's going on in the Middle East. And they've done this before, that's why I predicted this, because it's not like it's anything brilliant, but Israel does that whenever there's some sort of major event happening, and all the news is focused on that because it is so large, that they go ahead and they do their own little thing there, that otherwise everybody would be focusing on that, and they don't want that to happen, of course. And so what are they doing? They're bombing central Beirut. Lots of people getting killed, lots of destruction, and in a lot of cases what they're doing ahead of time is they're warning, giving people 15 minutes to evacuate, say, apartment buildings, and then bombing the crap out of the places. And well, what is their goal for this? If you think about this, if you think, oh well, we're after Hezbollah. Well, when they give a warning, oh crap, car behind me. When they give a warning, well, what do you think? Do you think Hezbollah's going to stay there? Well, if it's Hezbollah people that they're trying to get rid of, Hezbollah's going to leave as well. And oh gosh, what's this guy going to probably come back? In any case, it's their goal is not what they say it is. Sounds like politicians, right? Their goal, of course, is destruction. And why do they want to destroy so much? Is because they want to, break the minds of the people, break the minds of the resistance by that's what they're doing in Gaza. They're destroying Gaza purposefully. And everybody knows there is no Hamas where they're bombing and destroying all these apartment buildings and hospitals. There's no Hamas there. They're just bombing it, and I think they've destroyed all hospitals in Gaza. And they've taken a lot of the doctors, and of course they strip them naked, and make them put their hands on their heads, or maybe they handcuff them and march them out, and patients, somebody's got to hold up the IV things, and they march them all outside into courtyards and humiliate them, do all sorts of things. I don't know what they're doing with those that are bedridden. Maybe they kill them. I don't have any idea. Lots and lots of this crap. Oh, but it's not genocide. Killing all of these children. Oh, that's not genocide. Jeez. And then some countries, as you know, the European Union, or let's say the International Criminal Court, they've said that Gallant, former Secretary of Defense, or whatever you call it in Israel, and Netanyahu, who is the Prime Minister of Israel. They've said that they've issued an arrest warrant for them. And Borrell has come out and said, oh yes, well, we have to obey this because it's the International Criminal Court. And of course there's going to be countries in the European Union that will not obey that. Some of them have said they will obey that. It's left to be seen if they actually will or not. I think maybe Italy was one of them, you know. And it's it's not like, for example, say they issued one on Putin too. And of course they trumped up fake crimes against Putin. I think it was something about children, you know, that he is, I don't even remember what it is. It was fake, you know. So what, for my own mind, why should I remember something that you know is fake? You know, Putin was actually trying to get children out of the war zone in Ukraine, and then I think they called it kidnapping children or something. And then of course it's been found out that these children, a lot of them that were taken out of the war zone, they ended up in Germany. And then they're trafficking the Ukrainians, certain ones, unfortunately, you know. And it's sad for those families where these children belong to, that there are people in Ukraine that are trafficking these children. And a lot of times it's not for very good purposes. And some of them, and one reason why Putin brought them out of there is because inside of Ukraine, a lot of these, like children from orphanages or other places, they get these children and they're trafficked for very bad things, you know. And it's been known, and it's been exposed, and of course it's not really exposed out in the open of what they're being trafficked for. Very dastardly things. And you know, I can harken back to what was happening in Belarus in Second World War. A lot of the children were taken from their families, and they were used as permanent blood donors because, I guess, I don't know if it's true or not, but at least they thought so then. Maybe it is true, but they, you know, to use the blood of children for transfusions when blood is needed for wounded soldiers or whatever. So they would take the blood from children, Belarusian children, and of course they would use them for transfusions into wounded or injured soldiers. And of course it always had to do with separating them from their families. And a lot of the destruction and things that happened in Belarus in World War II, never really spoken about. It's very strange because it was far, far worse in Belarus than it was in Poland or anywhere. And I've reiterated that in other videos, and a lot of this stuff was hushed down even by Belarus, you know, how bad it was. Maybe it was done, you know, for purposes of trying to get along, you know, with the neighboring countries, no matter what, whether they were enemies or friends, or just like in Ukraine, a lot of these people that were doing the atrocities in Belarus in World War II, most of these soldiers that actually did the work, maybe under the supervision of Nazis, was done by Ukrainians. So they, you know, they were teamed up. I mean, I really shouldn't say Ukrainians. I should say the Banderites, because a lot of Ukrainians, they were not a part of this, of course, and they weren't, you know, in favor of it. Especially on the western side, or on the, let me say, eastern side, you know, the areas of Kiev and all that. It was they were more pro-Russian at that time. We're talking about the western side, maybe Lvov, and you hear about some things, and I don't know if this is going to be true, and it might. I should mention this because it may turn out to be something that happens in the future in Ukraine, but an establishment of a different capital of Ukraine, not in Kiev, but in Lvov. So it's even possible, if things escalate even more so, that Zelensky and maybe a lot of these other people, if Zelensky is going to still be around, who knows what's going to happen in the future. They're going to have to relocate the capital of Ukraine to Lvov, which is the capital in the past of the Banderite Nazis. That was that's where they centered themselves. That's where, even Polish, there was a lot of, and in those days, I think it was at one point in time, and I don't know if what happened, I believe, was they killed 60,000 Jews from Lvov and around that area in World War II, and 60,000. And of course, this actually happened. It's not like a lot of the fantasies you hear about Germany, which turned out not to be true, and it was just created fake stuff to make Germany look even worse. But the worst part, and it is documented as true, is this hatred of Jews and even communists, or anybody that lived under communism, to massacre these people. This was the Banderites. And they apparently slaughtered probably 60,000 Jews. And Stefan Bandera, and it's on record that he actually said this, he wanted to roll these heads at the feet of Adolf Hitler. And to be honest with you, even Adolf Hitler was not so extreme. But nobody really wants to hear that, because you hear about this magic number of 6 million Jews. He slaughtered 6 million Jews, and it's really weird, because before Hitler even came into power, they slaughtered 6 million Jews in World War I as well, with an estimated population of Jews living, like I said, from the tip of Portugal all the way past Moscow. They said the estimated amount of Jews that lived in those areas was 4.5 million. Makes you wonder, how in the heck could they massacre 6 million when there wasn't 6 million to massacre? And that would mean that none of them survived, and they shipped them from all kinds of different places in the world just to be killed in Russia. But guess what? That means that the United States was also complicit. They were putting Jews on things and airplanes and shipping them to Germany to be massacred in the camp. I mean, come on. This stuff gets to be a little bit too extreme. Anyway, I wasn't even going to be talking about this sort of thing. I just, like I said, go into tangents, and that's the way I do things. But a lot of you, I have to also thank a lot of you. You make comments, and some people said, "Oh, I love your tangents and things." Somebody said, "Oh, I hang on every word." And I was a student of history. I'll tell you a little bit about my past. And in the University of Washington, and I wanted to study ancient history because it fascinated me. And second, maybe, was Germany. I have ancestry coming from Germany, and I said, well, okay, that's fascinating history as well. So I'll study that, because if I were, for example, and I wasn't, if I were interested in studying Russian history, there's very little availability to study Russian history in most of the major universities, at least at that time. In the U.S. And of course, that was the time of the Cold War, and if you were to study it, of course, you're going to get a heavily biased view. It's just like, for the most part, studying, history or things about Islam. I've picked up books before, trying to find out a little bit more, and they were heavily biased against it. And some of the information I knew for a fact was fake, because sometimes you talk with Muslims. And you hear about things, you kind of check them out yourself, and you find out, oh yes, that is true. That is actually true. And then you look in these history books, and then they're purposefully steering you in some different direction to maybe make you unconsciously, and they're trying to act like they're fair, but they're trying to actually make you hate Muslims and things. And my opinion is, why would so many people be attracted to Islam, which is the largest religion in the world, if it was such a bad religion? And so you have this thing in the West, and believe it or not, I talked to this Christian not long ago. I might have even mentioned that, and there's somebody watching me here. I talked to a Christian not long ago, and I was thinking, this guy is a great guy, but he has this hatred of Muslims, and I was wondering, well, you doesn't seem like a bad guy, so why is this guy feeling this way? Well, actually, he was conditioned that way. It's a culture. So what is at fault for making us want to kill each other and go to war against somebody else? It's our cultures. It's our cultures and the systems and how they work together. It's their own little element of fascism, which I've said, the marriage of corporate money to government power, and that's how everything is run, for these governments anyway. But another thing I'll talk about, I wanted to, and I even made a note about this one. It was George Galloway, and George Galloway, a very fascinating person. If a lot of you don't know about George Galloway, one of the amazing things that actually attracted me more so to George Galloway, I was liking the way he talked anyway. I'm talking about the old days. And they accused him once of collaborating with Saddam Hussein. That was when we were all supposed to, hate the evil Ukraine, and to, that he wants to massacre all these people, and he's killing babies and taking them out of incubators. All the fake stuff, the fake news, of course, that we're all indoctrinated with. And they said that George Galloway was a business partner of Saddam Hussein and all this sort of thing. And so the United States government had issued some sort of a proclamation against him, maybe to arrest him or to investigate. But anyway, it didn't quite get that far, because what happened was, before trying to convince the entire world that George Galloway was a secret agent of Saddam Hussein, and he actually hated the world. I think at that time George Galloway was a member of Parliament in Great Britain. But anyway, what they didn't, they said something about wanting to question him or whatever, and it was a threat to get him to the United States and put him in prison. But anyway, George Galloway accommodated them. George Galloway came to the United States and sat before the United States government answering questions. And this was like all these people, and they were providing this evidence, or something, what they called evidence, and it was all trumped up and fake. It was fake evidence. They had contracts with his signature on it, and he said, "That's not my signature," and all of this sort of stuff. Anyway, he really embarrassed the United States government. You can probably still find this, even if it's surprising they put this on YouTube. He embarrassed the crap out of these people, that they faked it to try to put some guy like this and to demonize him. I think they banned George Galloway from going to Canada at some point in time. But that's just some background of what I was just now about to say. George Galloway, he had, I think it's monologue. He has these monologues sometimes. And it's terrible for me to even watch these things, because these people are talking truth so much that it really distracts me, and I can't concentrate on my that's one reason why I have to make these videos, because it's terrible when you hear this truth and we're all being indoctrinated and lied to and made to believe completely things that are false, so that we'll put on a uniform, grab a gun, and go kill innocent people that they told us are evil, amongst other things, or stick some kind of a medication in our arm that's for some imaginary sickness, or a sickness that they actually created, but it's not quite as bad as they say. But if you don't do this, in order to give them more money and money to get these things going, oh God, it makes you sick of it, doesn't it? What the kind of a crappy system we're all living in, And then they steer culture and fake history, and God, I don't know. It's just a terrible, terrible, terrible stuff. But George Galloway, let me get back to what I was saying. He was talking about something, I've even mentioned this before, and I was thinking, oh, that's so great that George Galloway said this. But he was talking specifically about Great Britain, that the hatred of Russians from this, I think he's mostly talking about the political, or the ruling, not just political, the ruling powers of Great Britain. They've hated Russia for centuries, and it is true. At least for the part of Great Britain, I can tell you one thing. You can find, for example, you see photographs of Queen Elizabeth wearing a crown at some times. She has more than one crown, but there was one crown that she wears, and I've seen photographs of it. But then you can look at old depictions of Catherine the Great, and you can see that crown that she wears was first a crown of Catherine the Great. A lot of people will not tell you about this, but the British stole that crown. They stole that crown from Russia, and they use it as one of the crown jewels of Great Britain. George Galloway didn't mention that. I'm assuming that he might know about it, but I don't know. That's just one point right there. And if that's not going to piss off Russia, just like a lot of the artifacts from Egypt or any other places, the British have those, and it's different than what happened in Iraq, when the United States took over there, and they had lots of Israelis going into the museums and stealing all of these artifacts of ancient history, cuneiform tablets and all of this stuff. And maybe they only exist today, possibly in photographs, because a lot of them now have disappeared. 4,000 years before Christ, and a lot of these things are gone. And most of these people were, of course, Israelis. They're going in there, and the United States just watched them going in and loading and taking all of these things out from, and maybe they disappeared them. I have no idea. A lot of time what Israel tries to do is they try to take some things and destroy like some parts of history, because they're trying to create a history maybe of a different history. And as you all know, that is a big thing going on right now is to create different histories, different narratives of history. Like, for example, trying to say that Russia dropped the bombs on Hiroshima. I've already talked about that. I mean, they go so far as the United States, Ursula von der Leyen, and all these people going to Japan, going to Hiroshima at some commemoration, and acting as if Russia did that and not the United States. And it's like, what the heck is going on here? You know? So, oh, by the way, it's cold. It's not real cold. I think it's maybe 1 degree below zero. Cold enough to be bothersome here. But, I've distracted myself now. What was I getting at? Okay, George Galloway, we're talking about real history. And I was mentioning also a little bit earlier about my past. I majored in history, and I got Golden Key National Honors, and I've had to, sometimes professors asked me when I did some research papers, they called me in, and we're talking maybe even classes, professors that had classes of 400 students, and the research that I did on my papers, they had a document ready, and asked me to sign it where they can use my research for their own purposes, like writing books and things like that in the future. And man, I was just a friggin' student. I didn't care. I'm not like gonna write a book or anything, but I just was fascinated a lot of times with history. So a lot of things that I'm telling you right now is not that I'm just some joker that's making stuff up, or that I misanalyzed information that I read in the past. I can have a lot of bragging things. I'm not going to really do that, and I'm glad that a lot of you watch these videos, and maybe you sense this yourself, that I'm not just some joker. And I've gotten positions in the military and things. I was asked once to be a politician for some area. I got these letters, and I say, what the heck? I was just some regular worker. I worked in a prison at that time, and they wanted me to run for some seat or something like that, and it was based on other things I had. I don't want, like I said, I'm going to get myself too distracted. I do that way too much, unfortunately. I would be doing better in Russian if I wasn't distracted by too many other things. But back to George Galloway again and what he said. But I was remembering back in the past when I was doing research in history, and one thing that it wasn't anything for a paper, but it was a fact, and it shocked me, and it stayed with me. And I mentioned this already in a couple other videos, that I was reading about, for example, this had to do a lot with the early version of the European Union, which at that time you can maybe call, it was after the fall of the Roman Empire, and what they called it was the Holy Roman Empire. And of course, how that was set up is they had different kings, and there were religious leaders, and they would decide on who would be the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. And the Holy Roman Empire actually started with Charlemagne, Karl the Great. Karl der Große is what they say in German. And so, in a way, and then there was, he had his son, and one of them was, I think it was named Louis the German, and of course he established Germany. And then the Sultan of Paris, who'd established the French part of that empire after Charlemagne died, because he had his sons and it was kind of split up. But anyway, they needed some sort of a leader, and normally the leader was of the Habsburgs Empire, which ruled Austria-Hungary, you know, Yugoslavia, all those areas. And of course there was still Austria-Hungary Empire, and let's just say it, in World War I, when somebody assassinated the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, which was supposed to become the next leader of the Austria-Hungary Empire. And that's what kicked off World War I. And all this history, if you guys are interested, I'm just saying this stuff anyway, because I'm fascinated by it. And at that time, you know, they still had an Austria-Hungary Empire, and of course there was the German Empire also at that same time. There were a lot of separate German states, and Bismarck is the one who consolidated what you could call Germany. And Bismarck himself was a Prussian, and Prussia was the more powerful state of that time, and it was like around the 1860s. And the government of Prussia was called the Diet. It wasn't not a diet, somebody trying to lose weight, but diet. And the leader of Prussia, of course, was the Hohenzollern family, and they had, of course, even possessions in different parts of Germany, such as near Schwabingen, and they had, which was in well, a part of Swabia. They had the Hohenzollern Castle, and they had even a part up in the northern part of Germany, right near the border of Holland. So then that was a part of the Hohenzollern Empire as well. But anyway, they established this thing around 1860, and then right away they became like the major power of Europe at that time, because there was the Franco-Prussian War. Anyway, like I said, I'm off on another tangent. Sorry about this. Very interesting history. That's why I studied that, and that's why some professors wanted to use the information for their books, of course. And anyway, during my studies of even German history at that time, and that earlier version of the EU, I noticed that most of that was set up to keep the Slavic people, like the purpose of this union was to keep Slavic people out of Europe, believe it or not. And I was thinking, wow, that is incredible stuff. And nobody really ever talks about that. And of course, you're not going to hear that from anybody else, not even a lot of these tremendous people like George Galloway, because it's something that I discovered at one time. So realize maybe part of a purpose of a European Union is still to keep the Russians out of Europe. It's just a possibility. I'm not saying it's a probability, I'm just saying a possibility, because that's what it was all about in the past. So anyway, I have to shut this video off for a second. I'll get back to you